One of the things that it talks about is the colt that was brought had never been ridden. Now, I know that a lot of you come from farm country. Have you ever dealt with a colt that's never been ridden? Kind of thought my brother might be here today. I'm going to tell a story about him because he's not here, right? I was like 10 and he was like 14. And my dad at that time had this wild idea that he was the world's greatest horse trainer because he had grown up on a farm in Ohio where they raised corn and didn't have no horses. I don't know how it all works, but he had this idea. So we were living on a quarter horse ranch outside of Dallas, Texas at a small town called Duncanville. And he was doing pretty good. He had them bringing these horses, these magnificent horses. I don't know if you've ever been around quarter horses, but they're kind of a different breed because they're made to run a quarter of a mile. So they're not made for work and they're not made for endurance. They're built for speed, right? And we had a 2-year-old and it was time to do what? You guys know, break them. They call it break them for a reason. So somebody had to ride it. And Jimmy had this idea, I'm going to break this colt. So we all got ready and we all came out, and it was the first time this animal had ever had a saddle put on it. And it was not happy about it at all, right? I was actually the best one with the horses. Here's one of the reasons why. I was small, I was skinny, they didn't sweat me at all. They weren't scared of me. They were like nice to me. They were like, let's have mercy on this kid and go where he's taking us. Because you know, if you've ever dealt with big horses, real horses, they do not have to do what you tell them at all. So he gets on the back of this colt, and we had this one area where we had 3 wooden fences and 1 barbed wire fence. And my dad only told him that my dad would always give us these very clear instructions, right? And he says, Jim, don't let go. Now you might think there are probably some times when you should let go. So he gets on that horse and he gets down on it. He looked like a backpack on a monkey. He was like, that horse takes off at like 100 miles an hour. It's the fastest I have ever seen a living thing go. Right to the barbed wire fence. Bam! Instead of it stopping at the barbed wire fence, it takes the barbed wire fence and just keeps going. And we're all running down. You know, we had a drive. This was one of those places that had a driveway a mile long. Maybe you guys saw this. And it starts going. And it's just going. And we're just running after it. Very ineffectually. Like we're going to do something. And 10 minutes later, he comes back down the driveway riding the horse. And we had a party. There was bologna sandwiches. It was amazing, right? But that's what it's like the first time you ride a horse. Here, he was specifically supposed to get a horse that had never been ridden. That's why it's a colt. It's a foal. It had never been ridden because some of the prophecies, and especially with the king could only ride a horse that had never been ridden by anyone. In other words, it was a holy event, and that's why it had to be young. That's why it had to say this also. Now, how do kings usually come into a kingdom? They do come in on a horse, right? They come in on a battle horse, on a big white stallion. All the people are running around with fans, and you got weapons everywhere. And he's just click, 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 click. He comes in on a foal. He's coming to conquer, right? But they don't understand it. Because the world thinks you conquer with weapons and with bombs and with guns. And he's conquering them with love and mercy and grace. And there's this one thing where you could put up the screens of your eyes out there and you could see things remarkably differently from how they really are. You could think to yourself, that's not how a king comes into a kingdom. I know how a king comes into a kingdom. It's an awesome event, right? But the people saw and the people understood.